Yeah, we are live now.
Okay, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. Our distinguished guest, respected principal, sir, teachers, and dear friends. I, Muskan, on behalf of the Forbes Business Economic Society of Shivaji College, extend a hearty and warm welcome to the international webinar on the topic India 2030, the road ahead. Before we begin with the program, I request everyone to keep their video and audio off so as to avoid streaming errors. Please keep checking the chat box for instructions, requests, and information during the event. We may communicate with the participants for important concerns during the event through the chat box. Kindly write your questions through the chat box. Kindly fill the feedback form that will be circulated at the end through the chat box. In case of any misconduct, the participant responsible will have to be removed from the meeting. We request your cooperation in conducting this virtual event smoothly. The Business Economic Society has been organizing webinars for the academic session 2020 to 2021. The webinar provides an excellent opportunity for faculty members and students to engage with economists, policymakers, and practitioners, people who in their day-to-day positions apply their knowledge and insights in academic pursuits to some of the world's most interesting developments and challenging problems. Today, the department has organized an international webinar on India 2030, the road ahead. And for this, we are honored and privileged to have amongst us Professor Subodh Mathur, an economist, PhD MIT, with a proven teaching record, strong conceptual and quantitative skills, and wide-ranging international and US policy and operational experience. We welcome you, sir. I also take much pleasure in thanking our principal sir, Dr. Shiv Kumar Sahdev, for putting in so much efforts for making all this possible. He is not able to join the webinar due to his ill health, but we wish him all the best. Now I welcome Mrs. Iti Dandona, our convener and teacher in charge, to come in and welcome all the guests.
Good morning, Professor Mathur, all the participants, faculty, and dear students. On behalf of Shivaji College and Business Economic Society, I extend a very hearty welcome to our distinguished guest, Professor Mathur. I also welcome all the participants to this webinar. I convey my gratitude to Dr. Mathur for accepting the invitation and gracing the event today. It's truly an honor to have you as our guest, and it is a privilege to learn from the renowned academician. I'm sure each one of us would benefit from your lecture on the topic India 2030, the road ahead. I would also like to take the opportunity to congratulate the organizing team, our faculty, Ms. Urvashi, Dr. Parul, and Aditi, along with brilliant student team in execution of this annual department festival, Invoke, and giving all of us the opportunity to virtually meet and learn from eminent economist, Professor Mathur. I wish all the success to the team. We all are now keen to listen to Professor Mathur. Thanks for your presence. Have a lovely session.
Thank you, Ms. Dandona and the students. It's my pleasure to be here. It's always great to be talking to young people, especially enterprising young people who have made an effort and persuaded me to even talk to them, even though it's close to midnight here. I'm so happy to be with you that, look, it doesn't matter whether it's late night or early morning for me. I'm glad to be here. I don't have a slide presentation for this talk because these are ideas which are still forming in my mind. I've been thinking about these issues for more than a year or more, and some of these ideas are still forming, and they are in rough format, but they are ready enough to be discussed with you and to be presented to you. So what I will do is I will give you some of my ideas and look forward to a discussion to answer all your questions and to see whether we can find some way of understanding each other. I'm really excited to be with you. So let me get started.
Professor Mathur, sorry to interrupt you. We would like to invite you formally by reading your profile. So before you start,
I think we can skip it because, you know, in this internet age, everybody knows all these things. Let's just get started, you know.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Let's just get started. There's no formalities here. You know, let's just get started. Okay, I'm eager to get started, and I'm sure so are the students. They can check my profile on the internet. They've already checked it. They found me on the internet, so they know something's going on. Okay, so let's get started. Okay. So my basic statement, one single line statement is that we need a bold new agenda for India's economy for the future, for the next 10 to 15 years. And especially, this idea is especially aimed at young people, because if you talk to people of my generation, who knows where we will be in the next 15 years, whether we will be looking at the economy or doing something else, who knows? So this is aimed at young people and especially at you, because for you, the next 10 to 15 years is perhaps the growing up, really growing up part of your life. And the issues are of great interest to you. So instead of talking about the economy and India's current policies or changes in the next few years, the basic idea that I want to present to you is that we need to do better than what we have done in the past. If we don't do better than what we have done in the past, then by better, I mean, we cannot go along the same path. We have been going on a path, we cannot go on that same path. We have to change the path. We have to go to a different path. It's not that we will continue on the same path. We have to go to a different path. Okay, so that's the basic premise, that unless we move to a different path, even after 15 years, 10 years, there'll still be people without good jobs. There'll still be people who are poor, and India will not be a regional economic power. So what I want to say is that after 15 years, 10 or 15 years, the exact date is not important. It's 10 or 15 years. We should not be in a situation where there are poor people in the country anymore, or there are people without jobs and living in horrible conditions. And we should be a regional economic power. We cannot be a superpower in the world, but we can at least be a leading regional economic power. So that's the ultimate aim, that people should have comfortable lives. They should have enough incomes, not rich, but good enough incomes. And fortunately, we do have the potential to do it. It's not a pipe dream. We can do it. It's not something that's impossible. It's something that's actually entirely possible. And I want to go through first to show you what we have done in the past, so that you get a sense of what do we have to do better than, and where have we come from where we started. Okay, so I'm planning to write a book. I mean, I've sent you some documents which are part of that book. This book won't be long. It will be only about 100 pages. It will only set out the agenda. By agenda, I mean the key points that your generation should focus on. I'm not proposing solutions at this point. I'm not saying this is the way to do it. I'm saying look out for these things in the future. This is what we should be focused on. There will always be ups and downs. There will be a COVID, and then we'll come out of the COVID, and there will be some boom, and then there'll be something else. So what is it that you need to keep your eyes on in the next 10 to 15 years? And by you, I mean the country. What is it that the country should be looking at in the next 10 to 15 years, so that we actually get where we go? So, and the government itself has always been thinking of making a 15-year plan. The Niti Aayog has promised twice that they will come out with a 15-year plan. Unfortunately, we don't yet have the document. It's very tough to create such a document. What is the vision for the next 15 years? It's very tough to create, but for the government, but for an individual or for a group, it's not so hard. So this is what I want. Even for me, it's very hard. So what I want to do is to simply lay out that what are the issues that the country should be looking at. It's not a plan for the government, it's a plan for the country. So, many times we think of the plans as a government plan. It's not a government plan, it's a plan for the country. Okay, so any questions so far? I'm happy to take quick questions as we go along so that it's clear where we are headed. So any questions? Anybody has a question as to where we are headed? Okay, so let's.
So we do have a question answer round at the end.
Okay, fine. So we'll wait for it. All right, good.
Would be asking the questions.
Okay, we can wait at the end. Okay, so since you are fairly young people and you didn't live through the past, let me give you a quick sense of what we have achieved in the past and where we have come from and where did we start. So overall, my view is that we have made reasonable but not enough progress since independence. And how do we know that we have made enough progress? Made some progress, but not good enough. Well, India was a very poor country in 1947. It's hard for you to imagine how poor India was. I mean, today here I am talking to you on Zoom. When I was your age, we couldn't even make a phone call. Okay, that's just an example of how much difference there is. But let's look at something that is more concrete. And let me show you one chart which I have created. Let's see if I can do screen share. Screen share, let's see what we get here. Do you see the chart?
Yes, we can see.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is showing you the literacy rate and the life expectancy in India and comparing. Why have I chosen literacy rate and life expectancy? Well, as I say, when you are dead, the economy doesn't mean much to you. Right? And if you are illiterate, once again, the modern economy doesn't mean much to you. You are basically out of it. So you should be.
So you got muted.
All right, am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you should be alive and you should be literate. So the economy must have at least done this, that they've given you a longer life. So look at the life expectancy and the literacy rate at independence. At independence, life expectancy was 31 years. Lots of Indians died young. They died when they were born, they died when they were 1 year old, and they died before they were 5 years old. Death was just routine in Indian families. There was nobody alive. There were hardly any grandparents because nobody lived long. See, and there was no youth because you died, okay, for most people. So life expectancy was only 31 years and the literacy rate was only 12%. 12% of people in India were literate. Means, and the literacy test in India is hardly much. You just have to be able to sign your name in one language and to say that you can do it. They don't check it, and that makes you literate. So 12% of the people were literate, and 31 years was the life expectancy. So that's 1947. And as you can, and I've shown you now 2020 and 1983. 1983 is halfway between independence and today. So you can see that there's been steady progress. Today, the literacy rate is 78%. And I'm sure it's much higher among young people. It's the older people who are illiterate and they remained illiterate. The younger people, the literacy rate must be 90%. So it's not so bad as it used to be. And the life expectancy is now 70 years. But China is 77 years and China is almost 100% literacy. So for me, that shows that, look, we have done a good job in some sense, but it's hardly enough. And we don't compete with China even in these two basic variables. How long we live, Chinese live 7 years more than us, and that's close to the US life expectancy. And of course, the literacy rate is 97% in China, and perhaps that's from 2018, and perhaps that's now 100%. So India has progressed, but India has not progressed enough. So that's the basic message we get from this, that India has not progressed enough. And people want more. Uh, in what sense do you think that people want more? Well, whenever I come to India, I just don't stay with my family. I also go around talking to various people who are low income people in some sense. And you go and talk to them. They are the auto rickshaw drivers, they are the maids, the cooks, the street vendors, the footpath barbers, the dhaba workers, chowkidars, factory workers, and so on. And they're all saving and scrimping to give their children a better education, right? They are all sending, they have come to the city to have a better life, but what they want is, they know they aren't going to have a very good life, but they want their kids to have a much, much better life. And I'm also working these days with some low income youths of your age or so through an NGO. And they are not so privileged as you are. Some of them can't afford to go to college because they don't have the money, or they have to work, and they don't speak English the way you and I speak English. I'm helping them. And they're also aspirational. They've all come out from poor families, and they're trying so hard to do well. And their parents want them to do well. So they want more. They don't want to be on the same path as we have been. And then I went to Dhobi Ghat in Mumbai in 2019. And there the workers come from all parts of India, not all, many parts of India. And you should go and see the working and living conditions. It is unbelievable. You know, you can't even, they don't even have a place to sleep. They just put out a plank, which is 3 foot wide, and they sleep on that. Okay, there's no other place. You just sleep on a one wooden plank, 6 foot. And if you want to rent a space which is 4 foot wide and 6 feet long, which is concrete, that's 1,000 rupees a month. And those people, by my estimate, make less than 10,000 rupees. Some of, I would guess, between 6 to 10,000 rupees a month. And some of it they're sending back to their families to support their families, and they're really aiming to get their kids to do a better job. So we know that Indians want more than this. They want to do a better job than this. Still, we haven't done so badly. And of course, we saw that India has not come close to China, but we will also look at the regional comparison. But let me summarize this in one way. We have built the foundations. India has built the foundations. We are no longer in the situation we were when I was your age, where we had not built the foundations. There was no way to think at that time, though we had great dreams, but we knew that we are not going to be like other countries anytime soon. It wasn't there. It simply wasn't there. But today we have built the foundations. We have we have good life expectancy compared to what it had been. And we also have an educational system, and I'll come back to it some more. But at least we are much better off than we used to be. So we have built the foundations. Another way of thinking about it, to summarize it, I would say, is that we are now in the quarterfinals. India is a quarterfinalist economy. We can be pretty sure that if there's a competition, we will be in the quarterfinals. Sometimes we will crash in earlier rounds, and sometimes we will do better than that, but we are not a semi-finalist yet, and we are not a medalist country. We are still in the, so it's not bad to be a quarterfinalist, or in sports terms, you are a state level player. You are not yet a national level player. Right? You are doing okay, but you are not great. So that was just a look from 1947 till today. But when I say India has to do better, I want to focus on the last 20 years, last 15 to 20 years. we've got to do better than that in the next few years. So that overview was there just because I thought, or I think the young people have no idea of how poor India was, because they've grown up, people like you have grown up in relative prosperity, and you have no idea. You've not experienced the kind of difficulties and problems that were present at that time. So I just wanted to give you a sense that, look, it was terrible in 1947. Don't let anybody tell you that life was good. People died young. Okay? There was no life. You died young and you were starving, right? It was not a rich country at all. We were poor. We are not so poor now. So that's a great lesson. If we are not so poor, we can do better. Okay, now let's look at the recent past. Here we see India's GDP growth rate, real meaning adjusted for inflation. That horizontal line, that's the trend. There's no upward trend. There is no downward trend for the last 20 years. When you look at it, it's just around 6.5% on average across the 20 years. And you can see the ups and downs, and you see three peaks there, one at 8% in 2006, and then in 2010 at 8.5, and then in 2016 at 8.26. So those were the 3 years, but we haven't had a consistent set of 3 to 5 years in which the economy has done well, except when you look at it from 2002 to 2006, where we were way above the average and consistently above the average. So that was the last time in 2002 to 2006 that India had a consistent growth trend. And that was somewhere close to 8%. After that, it has been up and down and around 6.5%. That's the line there, the dotted line showing you that our GDP. Now, why am I focused only on GDP? Some people object to GDP. They say, oh, it doesn't measure happiness, it doesn't measure welfare, it leaves out so many things. All true. And we know that GDP is not the most perfect measure, but it's simple, convenient, and easy to use, and it's internationally known. We also know all its flaws, but it's an easy way to summarize the economy. So, message is, in the last 20 years, we have grown at about 6.5%. Ups and downs, but what's missing is steady growth. We don't have steady growth, we have ups and downs. And of course, I'm not talking about COVID now. Leave COVID out. That's a one-time exception. Okay, now let's do some comparisons. So now we see the GDP and GDP per capita. Now, India, of course, dominates in GDP compared to Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, our neighbors, because we are a large country. But when you look at GDP per capita, we are not so ahead of Bangladesh. And in fact, actually, if you now look at the numbers for 2020, we are not even ahead of Bangladesh. It's just about equal to Bangladesh. And we are certainly behind Sri Lanka in per capita income, though of course in GDP. And the red line there is the per capita income. We are certainly dominant. Our market is huge because we are a huge country, but we are not ahead, except from Pakistan. We are not ahead of Bangladesh much, and we are not. And by the way, even in COVID in 2020, Bangladesh has grown, though India has had a major fall in the GDP. But let's leave COVID out of it. It's not anybody's doing. It's not economic policy. And Sri Lanka is ahead. Then when we look at the growth rate, now this is looking at in two different periods, 2000 to 2019 and 2015 to 2019. So the last 20 years and the last 5 years. And there you see in the last 5 years, the Bangladesh growth rate is actually higher than India's growth rate. And of course, Sri Lanka is behind and Pakistan is behind us. In both those comparisons, but Bangladesh is equal, almost equal when we look at the long period from 2000 to 2019, and ahead in terms of growth when we look at the more recent 2015 to 2019. So Bangladesh, when it was formed, many people said it's a basket country, it will never do anything, it will never stand on its own 2 feet. But here we are, Bangladesh is beating India in terms of the GDP growth rate over the last 5 years. And now let's compare India and China, because our real rival in Asia coming up, the only other large economy is China. So this figure, this chart shows you the ratio of the China's economic variable to India's economic variable. So the first column there shows you the ratio of the GDP. China's GDP is almost 5 times India's GDP. And they are no larger than us in terms of population. We are actually larger than them in terms of population. But and then you look at the ratio of GDP per capita, it's also 5 times. Okay? So they are 5 times ahead. The ratio of the growth rates, that's 1.5. So China has been growing faster than us. And then the ratio of the GDP growth rate, even in the more recent years, that is almost the same as India. And you can see that comparison over here a little more clearly. So from 2000 to 2019, when you look at the 20 years, you find that China actually grew on average at 9%. On average, not at a peak, on average. And India's highest peaks, if you go back up and you see these peaks, our peak was 8.5%, and then 8% and 8.26. That's peak. Here we are, China, 2000 to 2019, India about 6.5, China about 9, average. And then when we look at more recent years in the last column, we find that India and China are almost at the same growth rate in the last 5 years. Though in COVID, they are certainly ahead of India because they've recovered long before India did in COVID. But as I said, let's leave COVID out. India's growth rate hasn't changed. What has slowed down is China. So China grew very fast for 20 years, but has now slowed down. But after slowing down, they are 5 times ahead of us in terms of the economy. So we are not in a position to compete in economic terms with China. Finally, let's take a look at the international comparison. And here we have both GDP and GDP per capita. The US is way ahead of China. Now, there are some comparisons where China is equal or perhaps ahead of the US, and that's called purchasing power parity. That uses a different exchange rate than the market exchange rate. You might have heard about it in your courses. If not, you can look it up in Google. It's called the purchasing power parity exchange rate, PPP. Under the PPP exchange rate, China is equal to or ahead of the United States. But in looking at the normal market exchange rate, you see that the US GDP is way ahead, and US is first, China is second, Japan and Germany, and then India in terms of GDP. But when you are looking at GDP per capita, then you can see that India is way, way down. China is, of course, still behind GDP per capita, is way behind the US, and it's Japan and Germany, United States, United Kingdom and France that are ahead. So when we say that India is ahead of the United Kingdom and India is ahead of France, it's true. Our economy is larger. We have more people and our economy is larger. We are a larger market in that sense, and not today, but a larger potential market. And that's why people are interested in India, because they want to sell to Indians, because they think India's economy will improve. But today, the per capita income in Japan, Germany, United Kingdom, and France is way ahead of India. So we shouldn't be confused that, look, we are great, Everybody knows that we are now the fifth largest, and probably we have probably beaten Germany in terms of the GDP. If not, we will soon beat it, but then we will be fourth. And by 2030, we'll probably be the third largest economy in the world. So it will be just be United States, China, and India at the top. And we will be the bronze medalist at that time. We will be third in terms of GDP, very likely because Japan's not growing much. Germany is growing slowly. So we should soon overtake them in GDP, but not in GDP per capita. So we will be way behind in GDP per capita. So that's my quick overview of where we are. Certainly, we are in the international league. We are, as I said, we are quarterfinalists. We are there. We are somewhere there in the picture, and that shows me that we have the potential to do better. Right? We have done okay. We haven't done as well as China. We haven't done as well as Sri Lanka. Bangladesh is doing almost as well as us. And when we look internally, you find that people want more. People certainly want more. They are looking for jobs. Young people are looking for jobs, 15,000 rupees a month, 12 to 15,000 rupees a month. It's hard to get that. You go into a shop, air-conditioned shop, and you ask the salesman how much they are making. They're making 12 to 15,000 rupees. This is prestige shop in a mall. The salesmen are well dressed. They are only making 15,000 rupees a month. So naturally, the people who are working outside on the street, on the roads, they're making 7, 8, 9, 10,000 rupees a month. And it's tough to lead a life where you have to support a family. Since hardly any women participate in the labor force, we still have only 20% participation by women in the labor force. So we are still on a single breadwinner path. And 12,000 rupees a month, even in a small city, is barely enough to keep, pay your kids' tuition. And what the parents want is they send their kids to good schools, pay the money. They don't want to be stuck with the same old schools. So whether we look locally, internally, or we look at the way India stands in the world, we have built a foundation. We have built a few rooms on the house, in the foundation. We have yet to build the palace. Okay, we have yet to build the mansion. We have yet to build the nice, great house that India needs to build. But we can do it. So, thing is, how do we do it? Okay, so where are we headed? So, in order to do it, India has to do some things that it hasn't done till now, and we need to be looking at those things. So I have listed those things in a different document, which I didn't send to you, but you can look at here with me. Okay. The first and most sort of point that many people don't realize is that we keep thinking that it's the job of the Indian government or the government of India or the prime minister to take the economy forward. And that, I want to tell you, is just wrong. We tend to think, and the prime ministers also say, I will do it. And I'm not talking about Mr. Modi. I'm talking about all the prime ministers that I've seen in my life. They all say, I will do it. I will lead the country. I will do it. But actually, not only they cannot do it, they don't have the legal authority to do it. When you look at the Constitution, and some of you please read the Constitution. It's not a bad idea to read it. I know you aren't political science students, but take a look at the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't have a term called the Prime Minister of India. It's a fiction. It's a convenient fiction. It's a convenient way to say the government is the Prime Minister of India, and the Prime Minister of India is the head of the government of India or the central government. All these terms are missing from the Constitution. There's no central government, there's no government of India, and there is no Prime Minister of India. All the Constitution says is that the Prime Minister is the head of the union government. So I always write union government. I never write government of India. That's a term from the colonial days. then that's what the only government was, the government of India. And if there's no central government, this is a wrong term that came up in the 1950s. It's just wrong. And it's misleading because the constitution does not say that there is a prime minister of India. The prime minister of India has only the role and power assigned by the constitution to the union government, nothing less and nothing more. If that's not enough, the point is that in parallel, the constitution says that the chief ministers are head of their respective states. And they have the roles and powers assigned to them under the constitution. Nothing less, nothing more. They are not under the prime minister and they do not report to the prime minister. Let me show you very quickly a table that is still under preparation, very much under preparation. What are the chief ministers responsible for that would be of interest to an economist? The constitution actually has three lists. The union list, which is the power of the union government, the state list, which is the power of the states, and the concurrent list, which is the power, joint power of the states and the union government. So let's just look at some of the terms that are under the control of the chief minister. Number one, public order and police. I've combined many items from the legal language into one. Why does it matter to me as an economist? It matters because well-maintained public order gives confidence to investors that their projects will not be hurt by local disturbances. So if you have problems on the road, if you have rioting, if you have bus burning, if you have demonstrations, if you have all those things, and there's lawlessness, people don't want to invest. And India's problem currently is that we don't invest enough. Our ratio of investment to GDP is too low. We need to invest more. And honest and effective police will help small firms. They often face demands for bribes from police and other government agencies. So unless we get the small firms to develop, this is all under the control of the chief minister. Then the local government agencies such as municipal corporations, these are also controlled by the chief minister. They need to provide reliable and effective service to large and small firms. This is not, the prime minister cannot do anything about it. It's not under the prime minister. It's under the chief minister. Public health, hospitals and dispensaries. Now we are in COVID. Who has the infrastructure to provide the tests, to provide the vaccines? Now the vaccines are being distributed by the union government. That's okay, but who's going to implement it? It's the infrastructure, the health system in each state. If those are poorly run, it's the chief ministers that are responsible. Okay, very quickly, let's go through some of the economic factors. Agriculture is under the chief minister. Water is under the chief minister. Roads, bridges, and other means of communication. These are all just terms that I've taken. I'm just putting them together. So all of these key features, land, all kinds of taxes, I haven't finished the table yet. They are very much under the control of the chief minister. The prime minister actually has no ability to do anything there. Prime minister controls basically fiscal policy, which is taxes and expenditures. The monetary policy is controlled by the Reserve Bank of India. And there are practical issues on the ground that are under the control of the chief minister. Even education now is a concurrent subject, but the basic education is being done by the chief minister. So the point is that unless the chief ministers do a better job, we are not going to get the growth that we need. And I have formulated some idea of which are the key states and where this can work. So this document I did circulate, which are the 12 key states where we must have growth. Of course, every state must do well. Every union territory must do well. But I've tried to identify the 12 states which, if they don't do well, then India is not going to do well. We don't need all of them to do well, but certainly most of them need to do a better job, because without that, the economy will not grow. So these 12 states, they account for about 75% of India's GDP currently, and they account for about 80% of India's population. So this is the heart of the matter. We are not talking abstract. Chief ministers must do this, chief ministers must do that. We have 12 key states. If these key states do well, that's going to give India a big boost. Let's look at what they are. I've divided them into three groups, what I call as powerhouse states, P6. They are Karnataka, Telangana, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, and Andhra Pradesh. They're all in the south and the west. For all of them, their share of the GDP is more than their share of the population, right? Together, let's look at the chart. Here we are. P6, their share of GDP is 47%. Their share of the population is only 31%. So 30% of the people approximately are providing 50% of the GDP. And if you look at the chart, you can see that their GDP shares are more than their population share. So they're very productive states. P6, these are the powerhouse. They have done well, and they must continue to do well. So just to go through the list, and the line above here is the ratio of per capita income in that state to the national per capita income, and all of them are above 100, which is on the right side. So you see that they are all better off. The people there are all better off than in the other states. So these are the P6. They must all continue to do well. If we have problems in those states, then there's so like when we see now there is a lockdown due to COVID in Maharashtra, that's a big problem because Maharashtra is very productive. You can see that their GDP share is almost 14%, and some people now say it's 16%. If you're going to shut down Maharashtra, you are in trouble because you are shutting down a key part of your economy. So Maharashtra has to do well. And Tamil Nadu also has to do well. So these are the key states. We hope that they will continue to do well. Then I have called O4, O standing for opportunity. These are 4 states, West Bengal, Rajasthan, Odisha, and Madhya Pradesh. So these are the 4 states where I think they're ready to do well. They haven't done greatly, but they can do better, and they're ready. So that's the opportunity. The chief ministers there have an opportunity. So together, they form 23% of the population, but they contribute only 18% of the GDP. But if you look at the chart there, you see that they're not bad. I mean, they are pretty close to the share of population is pretty close to share of the GDP. And so, and they're also large because I've taken only the large state together. If they pick up, and you can see where their per capita income is, their per capita income ratio is much lower than that of the P6. But it's worth noting, some of you won't know this term, but in the 1970s, there was a term called Bimaru. Bimaru meant Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh. These were the 4 states that were seen to be Bimaru or lagging. I have classified Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh no longer as lagging, but as opportunity states. They have come out of that Bimaru role, and they are now, what is a little bit tragic in this, as you look at it from historical perspective, is that West Bengal still is not in the powerhouse states. West Bengal could have been. It's a long history of economic development, literacy, education, all the great things, Nobel Prize winners, dedicated people, hardworking, but in economic terms, West Bengal has failed to live up to its potential. But the potential is there, and they are close, and they can do a better job. So these are the 4 states where we have the opportunity. Next, we come to the 2 states that I called in a very polite way as essential states. I was searching for a term. This is the UP and Bihar. And here you can see that they have 26% of the population, but only 11% of the GDP. That is not adequate. And especially UP, you can see that the share of the population is so high, it's almost like 18%, but the share of GDP is half, it's almost like 8%. So UP is very large, populous state, but not so productive. And if states like that don't improve, then we are in trouble. Fortunately, both Bihar and UP in recent years have had a fairly large growth rate, but they are still way behind. And so they need to maintain this higher growth rates, better for economic performance in Bihar, especially because it is really, if you look at the two, UP is ahead of Bihar in terms of the per capita income. So, and if you look at
Sir,
the ratio
sorry to interrupt you,
to,
sir.
yeah,
But I think your screen is frozen, sir. We can still see the international comparison.
oh, I'm moving my, hang on, sorry. I'm
That's
moving
okay,
my
sir.
chart, but okay, thank you. Let me see what's going on. You know, maybe I can do something about it. Controls, where the heck? Hang on. You should have let me know earlier. That's it. I can't even find the, where is my screen? Hang on. Sorry.
So you can reshare the screen. I think
Yeah,
there
but
must be some technical
I have
glitch.
to, yeah, I'll do it. Hang on just a second. Let me, okay, let me first stop this share, okay?
Yes.
All right, now it's, okay, so let's do it again, okay? Share the screen. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir. Is it? It is
Oh,
visible.
okay, so thank you. So let me go back through this chart because we now see, here we see the 12 states that I've picked. Uh, in the left-hand side, you have Karnataka, Telangana, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, and Andhra Pradesh. They are the powerhouse states. Together, they have about 30% of the population and about 50% of the GDP. So these are our productive states. They have done well, and they need to continue to do a better job. They're well positioned in terms of per capita income. They can show the way, and they need to continue to lead. Uh, Next group is are called opportunity states, O4. Together, they form 23% of the population and only 18% of the GDP. So they are falling short, but it's an opportunity. They can do much better and they can continue to do better. Odisha, for example, has been doing rather well for the last 10 to 15 years. Started out as a very poor state, still is a poor state, but it is now, if you look at the chart there, its per capita income is ahead of Madhya Pradesh. You would not think of that 30, 40 years ago when Odisha was a really backward state, but its per capita income is now ahead of Madhya Pradesh. So it's growing well and uh, it's getting people out of poverty. Chief ministers do matter because these differences you see are not because of national policy. It's not national policy that favored those 6 states. There is no way that could happen, especially when you look at UP and Bihar, because they have a large number of people in the Lok Sabha. Obviously, the union government could not have set forward policies that discriminated against the UP and Bihar. So I'm not blaming any one particular chief minister. This is looking at long term. UP and Bihar are badly neglected states. Let me tell you a story. In 1973, I was teaching in the University of Rajasthan at Jaipur for 1 year. And my head of department was Professor Raj Krishna, who later on became a member of the Planning Commission. So he was an advisor to the UP government at that time. And he went to attend a meeting. And when he came back, I asked him, sir, what did you find in Lucknow? It's just about no change. Even the flies are still sitting in the same place they were when I last went there. Even the flies don't move. Nothing moves. So this is the situation of UP, that it has been in terrible economic progress for years. This is not a political statement here. It's not about one government or one chief minister. And Bihar too, very much in bad shape economically. Roads are terrible, no infrastructure. Those things have improved in recent years. So these are the 12 states together. I call them K-12 because of the key 12 states. 80% of India's population is here, 76% of India's GDP. These states must continue to do well. Now, not all of them will do well. Some of them will fail and some of them will do better. But if many of them fail, then we cannot have progress in India. And I show this to you to say that it's not national policy alone that matters. Chief ministers do matter. West Bengal is stuck. Now, Bengal used to say, oh my God, the national government's against us because the Congress didn't like Netaji and against Netaji. So this went on for many years. That look, the North, this is against us, discriminates against us. But then the South, which used to complain about Hindi and so on, quietly decided that whatever it is, we need to grow. And there you are. You see the 3 southern states. Kerala should also be there, but Kerala is too small in terms of population. It's not in the chart. But you see Karnataka, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, there, and Gujarat and Maharashtra. So that's it. So the states that decided to take advantage of their background and their abilities, they have gone ahead. And those that are not yet ready to make a leap, we are hoping, I am hoping, that they'll wake up and these 12 chief ministers will do a good job. So in the end, we have 14 people. The Prime Minister, in which I include the Union Finance Minister, the head of the Reserve Bank of India, and these 12 chief ministers. These are the 14 people. Now, obviously, each chief minister is not as powerful or important as the Prime Minister, but as a bunch, they are very important. So that's the message here, that we must get better performance from these chief ministers. Then we can hope that India will do a better job. Okay, so, and I have already outlined to you what kind of things we can hope to expect from the chief ministers by looking at the constitution. Okay, so now let me go back to my list of key issues to look at. And I hope when I move to that document, the screen moves. If not, please let me know. And I will go back and change the screen. Okay, let me stop the share and let me share it again. Okay. All right. So that was my what I call as meta-economic. Meta-economic means these are factors outside the economy, but which have an important economic implication. So these are not things that we study in economics courses, but economic policy doesn't live in a vacuum. It doesn't exist in a textbook. It doesn't exist in some place where there's no outside influence. Economic policy exists and works within the country, within the politics, the social life, all of those factors. So the first point is the chief ministers must do a better job. Second point is that we must have internal harmony. We don't need the north-south divide. You know, in the 1960s, there was a north-south divide, Tamil Nadu and other states protesting that Hindi is being imposed upon us. That problem was resolved to the satisfaction of Tamil Nadu and other South Indian states. And look, they have done so well in economic terms, and they have given us the chance to do well. So we need to understand that if you want to focus on economic growth, then there has to be focus on economic growth. We cannot focus on too many other factors. If we do, then we lose the uh, potential and the momentum for growth. We need to focus on economics. Uh, and of course, I'm an economist, so I won't get into the details of the politics or social or other issues. We don't need people promoting and provoking religious and caste strife. What are traditional identities? Traditional identities, you know, are religion, caste, um, tribe, language. These are our traditional identities. We all have our traditional identity, but in the end, we are Indians. And we cannot, I think, we cannot get rid of these traditional identities in elections. They're very prominent in every state. It's not something that it's only in one state. But heck, after the election is over, please let's get on with the job of promoting economic growth. And the government should treat all equally. They are all Indians. We need to treat everybody equally. And we need to give everybody economic growth. It's not that one particular caste or one particular religion or one particular region or one particular tribe. We need to give everybody economic growth and focus on economic growth. You know, no more. When you look at the election manifestos of the Lok Sabha election of 2019, disappointing. You don't find much focus on economic growth. There's all kinds of things that people talk about, but they don't focus on economic growth. And then look at the elections in the states, you hardly find much discussion of economic growth. Sometimes there is, but it's in terms of promises like we'll give you this, we'll give you that, the government will do this to you, the government, it's a my bap government. You are poor people, we the government are rich, we will give you this, we will give you that. That's not the way to have economic growth. The way to have economic growth is to let it happen on the ground. Not that the government then comes in and says, look, we will give you a bicycle, we will give you a TV, we will give you a laptop, I will give you this, I'll give you free electricity. No, give the people a chance to make a living on their own. Of course, the government will have to provide for the poorer people. I'm not against subsidies at all. In fact, one of my key jobs around the world is to design subsidy schemes. So I'm not saying we shouldn't have subsidies and the government shouldn't do it, but that's not the focus. The focus is to say, listen, we will make sure that you have a chance at getting a better job. Instead of saying that the government will give so many jobs, how many jobs can the government give to young people? It cannot. So the third one is we need to focus on China. China is our real economic rival. And I've shown you those charts of how far behind we are falling compared to China. So we need to strengthen our position with our neighbors. Right now, to be honest, China is lending money like crazy to Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and Bangladesh too. The Prime Minister went to Bangladesh recently and tried to have some good relations with them. I'm sure he has done well. I'm not going to discuss the politics of it. But when you look at the money that China is providing to Bangladesh, it's far more than what we or the World Bank or any international institution can provide. The money that China has provided to Pakistan and to Sri Lanka is enormous. China has almost taken over one port in Sri Lanka because they couldn't pay back the loans. And we tried to get into a port in Sri Lanka and we have been kicked out of it. So we aren't focused enough on our position with our neighbors and we aren't focused enough on China. If we want to be a regional economic power, which I think we can be, then we need to have our politicians, our thinkers, they need to come up with a better way to do it. As an economist, I'm not going to say what it is. All I'm saying is that as an average person, as a normal person, as somebody who looks at things, I would like to see a much bigger focus on China and strengthening our status and position with our neighbors. How to do it? That this is my agenda point. The solution, I leave to others to find. You can find your own solution. The government can find its own solution. Other people can find their own solutions. But I do say we should stop being highly bugged by Pakistan. There's far too much focus on Pakistan. Pakistan is not our right. Pakistan is not. You saw the charts there. Pakistan is way behind in terms of GDP. Pakistan is way behind in terms of GDP per capita. Pakistan is not our focus point. On Quora, I write many answers. And in September 2019, I coined a slogan, which I write often on Quora, which was wake up, wake up, wake up. China, not Pakistan, China, not Pakistan, China, not Pakistan. And after that, I stopped writing answers to questions about Pakistan on Quora because I don't want the focus to be on Pakistan. Focus is on China, and that has happened recently after the skirmish on the border in about 1 year ago. People started saying, oh, we shouldn't buy these Chinese goods, we should be more patriotic, we shouldn't buy these goods, we shouldn't do this. But if you look at the data, we are importing from China almost the same as we were before, because we really are linked to China for the low income goods, low price goods that India is not able to produce competitively. So we need to focus on China and strengthen our position with our neighbors. So these are the three, what I call as meta-economic factors if we want to be on a new growth path. First, recognize that it's not the Prime Minister that runs the economy. Prime Minister has a major influence. The Governor of Reserve Bank of India is also very important. As economists, you learn that they control monetary policy. But really, the Reserve Bank of India is not a constitutional body. It's a body created by the Lok Sabha. It's by an act. So it is actually, in a sense, theoretically independent, but actually not as independent as the chief ministers, who get their power directly from the constitution and not from an act of the union government. And then number two, maintain internal harmony. Try to live together. People talk of unity in diversity, but it's fraying. We don't need this frame. We need everybody to understand that if we work together, we pull together, united, focus on economics, then we don't waste our time and money and energy, disruptions, which are very bad for economic growth. And finally, recognize that we have to catch up to China. Take in 15 years, China is 5 times ahead of us. In 15 years, we can almost catch up to China. Not quite. You do the calculations, which I haven't done here. I'm not shown here. We can't quite beat China in 15 years, but we could do it in your lifetime. You're young. In your lifetime, India can get ahead of China. There's no doubt about it in my mind. In 15 years, in 10 years, definitely not. They're 5 times our size. But in 15 years, we have a shot at it, especially if China does not speed up, even if China stays close to where it is. And China has a problem. China is now an old country. They've run out of young people because they followed the one kid policy. There are no young people left in China. They are really short of workers. Though it's got a large population, the average age in India is currently 29 years. Average age in China is currently 38 years. China is a much, much older country. In 38 years, there aren't that many young people coming into the workforce. So they are really short of workers, and that means wages are rising, and that means they have to automate also. So they have some structural problems. And then there will be very few young people. And since the old people now live a long time, they have a dependency ratio. The young people have to look after the old people. The one-child policy has created a major mess for them. And they've tried to get people now in the last 3 years to have more kids, but the women have said no. Forget it. One is enough. That's what I'm going to have. So they don't even have 2 kids at all anymore. So it's a mess. So there is a shot that we can actually catch up to them. Okay, so those are the three what I call as meta-economic factors that we need to keep a focus on. Economic factors, they are not in any particular order here, but we have 5 of them. So first is build India's infrastructure. We are badly lacking in infrastructure. We are far, I wrote here, we are far behind China, but really we are nowhere close to China. We are lagging way behind. Our railways. They are still crowded. You still read today that the trains are running so crowded with migrant workers going back home. And there are no stand, not even place to stand. So forget masks, forget social distancing. The trains are 100% jammed to capacity. We don't have fast trains. We don't have safe trains. They need to be upgraded, and we can do it. We are talking about some faster trains. We are talking about a bullet train from China, Japan. Let's just make our average train faster, more comfortable, more reliable. That's one part of infrastructure. Electricity, that's another part of our infrastructure. We have done great things on solar, no doubt about it, but the solar panels all come from China, so it's a very uncomfortable situation that we are in. The roads, they are still congested. We need to do better. We need to have ports. Our ports are antiquated. We are unable to have quick exports and imports because our ports are outdated. And they're so outdated that we don't even get many ships coming there, because we need to upgrade all of this infrastructure. And when we talk about infrastructure today, we have to talk about digital infrastructure, broadband. When I talk to these low-income students, these low-income youth I'm talking about, they barely have reasonable, decent Wi-Fi on their phones. They can't afford it. Half the time you can't hear what they're saying because they don't have good Wi-Fi. And one of my friends, he runs educational programs in the villages. He says there's no way we can do anything online because the broadband or Wi-Fi is so weak that you cannot show them pictures, you cannot show them anything. So we are lagging behind. This is not the way. Yes, we are certainly, my time, you couldn't even make a phone call. Today, everybody can make a phone call and we can send text messages, but that's not being world class. That's just being, as I said, a quarterfinalist. You want to be the medalist. So we need to build the infrastructure. The private sector can build it. They have built the telephone system, the smartphones, and so on. But in the end, you need the government to do a good job. Most of this is under the union government, except the power sector, the DISCOMs. The DISCOMs are under the chief ministers. And I can tell you as a power sector specialist that many DISCOMs are doing a rotten job. And the chief ministers know it and they don't care. They just don't care. They just let them be. And now, to give Mr. Modi credit, when he was chief minister of Gujarat, he shook up the DISCOMs and they became really the leaders in India. Gujarat's DISCOMs, the power DISCOMs, are really very good. And he did it while he was the chief minister. He didn't even have support from the union government, but Gujarat did it, and Gujarat is ahead. This is one of the reasons. If you look at the DISCOMs in the states that are in the P6, all of the DISCOMs are doing well. Why? They need to provide electricity to industry. If you are not able to get reliable power, you are not going to do well in the economy. Okay, so you get the point. Number 5, upgrade the education system. We have truly not got a modern education system. We are still too much in rote. Yes, you and I are educated, you and I can talk like world-class people and so on, but you go to any village school, my God, they are, chief ministers are running those schools. They don't care. They're hopeless, lousy, and even poor parents are pushing their kids into private schools. Pratham is an NGO. They put out an annual report called ACER, and it's about the education. Last I read it, there are now almost as many students in private schools as in government schools at the elementary school level. You talk to the cooks, the waiters, auto rickshawalas, they want to send their kids to private schools, and even in the villages. And if they cannot send it in the village, they rather try to move to the city to send. The education system is truly lousy. And in also in higher education, uh, we are not competitive. You know, the top universities of India don't figure in the top universities of the world. And we find different ways of saying, oh, they don't understand India, they don't know how to rank India. Yes, of course they don't, because they know that you don't compete with anybody. So when one of my friends went to IIM Ahmedabad and he came back and he said, Subodh, it's just awful. The kind of research they do there is third rate. I can't even look at it. So we really need to wake up. And right now, I would say we need to wake up at the elementary school level, because we are going to produce huge numbers of young people, millions of young people who won't be able to go to college because they need to earn the money right after they finished high school, or maybe they don't even finish high school. But the parents are poor, they need to get some money for the family. Maybe they are the eldest child, they need to support the young ones, they need to earn some money, they need to learn whatever they can in the first few years of their life. And now the world knows that what you learned before you're 5 years old is critical. 0 to 5 is critical. So if you mess up that time period, you're not going to get smart people. Now, of course, you know, we have had progress. I mean, you know, we all grew up in the schools that we have, but we went to better schools. I'm talking about the average. We need to do a much better job. The financial sector. The financial sector needs major reform. There's so much discussion about it, but there's not enough action. And here, the Reserve Bank of India is also very important because they control banking. We have so many bad loans called NPAs. I won't discuss it. You know what it is. And we talk so much in India on digital payments. In China, you cannot pay in cash. They don't talk about digital payments. All payments are digital. There's no need to have any cash with you. There's a report written by a reporter for the Financial Times who said that she had a 100 yuan bill, which is about $20, and it's there in her wallet after 1 year. You don't pay by cash. It's all digital. And digital payments started in Kenya in 2008. Digital payments are not something to focus on. Digital payments are something that should be done with, and if they're not done with, don't bother about it. What we really need is to look at the debt market and equity. If you're a smart young person, right, you got a bright idea and you want to start your company, where are you going to get the money? Who's going to loan it to you? Who's going to give you equity investment? There's no one. And the few that are there, they are all foreigners who are investing in young startups in India. And I talk to many people who are interested in startups, and it's not like I know much about it, but they think I know, which perhaps they're wrong. But anyway, I talk to them. I know, where are you going to get the money? And it's very hard. We just don't have the system. We have no way to give our young, innovative people loans. We have no way for the average person to say, listen, I've saved so much money. How can I invest it in a startup and make some money? So we are running a financial system that doesn't provide loans on an adequate basis. We have farmer suicides because they have too many loans. What sort of a system gives too many loans to farmers so they cannot pay back? So we really need, and somebody once asked me that when will nepotism end in India? I said when there's financial sector reform. Because I had a visitor in my home, a very nice gentleman, and he came, we had a good time together, and he tells me, oh, I've given my son 10 crore rupees to start his own company. Well, that's nepotism right there, because his son doesn't even know what he's going to do. But his father is well off, and his father's given him 10 crores of rupees to start his own company. And yet I'm somebody who's got a bright idea. I have thought about it very carefully. I don't have a father like that, and I can't even get 10 rupees. So how am I going to compete? So there's going to be nepotism. That's why you get the same families controlling, because their financial system is such that poor people, not poor people, smart people who are not wealthy, they don't have access to money to do their startup. So you understand the point that financial sector is not digital payments. This is a side story. We should do it, but we shouldn't focus on it. What we need to focus on is banking, debt, equity. Finally, last two, I've talked enough, almost an hour, at least 45 minutes. Reform the agricultural sector. We have 40% of the people there, and only they produce 14% of the GDP. 40% of our labor force is in agriculture, producing 14% of the GDP. They are just sitting there unproductive. We have to get them out of there. Where will they go? What will they do? How will they earn their living? They need to go, in my opinion, to small and medium enterprises. Not all of them can be hired by big companies. They can only be hired by small and medium enterprises. And where will those small, where should those be? They should be in tier 2 cities, so that we don't congest our tier 1 cities anymore. So reform of the agriculture sector is directly linked to the growth of the small and medium enterprises, preferably in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So instead of saying we need smart cities, what we need is to expand our tier 2 and tier 3 cities, maybe 5 or 6 in each state, to say that, listen, when the young people move out of farming, rural areas, because there's no income there, they should move to these tier 2 and tier 3 cities, where they can find jobs in small and medium enterprises, because you will never get the big companies to go and set up production there. And even if they do it, they don't create enough jobs. So the reform of the agricultural sector is linked to the promotion of the industrial sector and the development of more cities. So for example, if you look at West Bengal, okay, Calcutta, Kolkata, big city. What's next? How many people even know what's the next city? Look at Telangana. You think Hyderabad. Okay, what's the next city? Is there a next city? You don't even know what it is. At least when you look at Maharashtra, you can think, okay, there's Pune, there is Nagpur. All right, fine. We need more. Reform of the ag sector needs to come side by side with the further development of tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and that should be done by the chief minister. It's not a job of the union government. Finally, don't destroy the environment. In all of this, we cannot afford anymore to destroy the environment. The Ganga was not polluted when I was born, but today it is. Who did it? We did it. Delhi was clean air when I was a college student in Delhi, and today it's not. Who did it? We did it, because we didn't think enough about it. It's not the environment that it matters. The clean air was healthy. Polluted air is not healthy. All of you are living in polluted air. Your lungs are scarred. Take a look at your lungs at some point. You'll find they're scarred. If you're not, you're lucky. And when the rivers are polluted, it hurts everybody. So these are my 5 key economic factors. Number 1, build the infrastructure, upgrade the education system, reform the financial sector, reform the agriculture sector, and don't destroy the environment. You look at the collapse of the dams in Uttarakhand, you build the power, the hydropower at a place where it shouldn't have been built. You were warned, but you built it. You are destroying that fragile ecosystem. I'm an environmental economist. I can't afford to see that we destroy anymore. Okay, thank you. This is I've talked a lot, I've talked enough, and perhaps I'm out of touch anymore, walking for so long. Let me stop and answer questions that may come up. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Okay,
so
so
much, sir.
yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. The webinar surely was very promising and full of knowledge about the topic. I'm sure our participants enjoyed a lot and learned a little too much today. I know I did. Now I would request Aditi ma'am to take over and for the Q&A session.
Thank you, Muskan. Thank you so much, sir, for such an interesting session. It covered a lot of the important aspects that we need to actually look forward for our country's growth. So I'm sure students have gained in a lot of knowledge, but they have a few queries that I'll just put forth for you. So one question that I would like to start with is, we talk a lot about the difference between India and China. So, they are we can compare them very well. So if you can briefly mention what exactly went wrong with we started off together, almost together in this growth struggle. So what went wrong in the start which made India lag behind?
well, you have to define what you mean by the start. I mean, China really was a poor country in the 1950s. It was a poor country in the 1960s. It didn't really get a start till Mao died. Till Mao Zedong was the leader, China was a poor country. So Mao Zedong died quite late. And for those years, China was not a powerful country, an economically powerful country. And China became a began to become an economically powerful country only with Deng Xiaoping, who said it doesn't matter the color of the cat so long as it catches the mouse. So it doesn't matter what we do, we must get results, right? So his focus was on results, and we chose a democratic system, and China chose a totalitarian communist system, and they managed to suppress everybody, dissent. Uh, so they were able, but with a total focus on economic growth, because there's nothing else. They don't have the issues that we have of diversity. They don't have those issues, right? That Mandarin was imposed and the other languages were suppressed. So they were able to actually follow the alternate path of a totalitarian. It's not communist as such. I'd rather call it a totalitarian government, an authoritarian totalitarian government focused on economic growth. And they invented this concept of the special economic zones because the rest of the economy was still running on, let us say, communist type guidelines. And so they said, look, we need to have capitalism in these special economic zones. And India also tried special economic zones, but Chinese government was very successful in the coastal special economic zones. And with a total focus on economic growth, total focus, and such hard work that it's hard to believe, as I didn't go to China in the 1990s as a consultant for the World Bank, but some of my colleagues used to go, and they used to come back and say, you can't imagine how hard those people work. So it says, look, they will go for dinner with us. They will drink double of what we drink. At 10 p.m., they'll go back to office. They will write their report in Chinese till midnight. They will translate it into English till 1 a.m. and they will be at their desk at 8 a.m. and ready for us. And they are relentless. And I went to Rwanda. The people there nobody has bugged the hell out of me as much as Rwanda. The report is due at the end of the month. They're saying, can you do it in 2 days in the middle of the month? And I said, my God, nobody ever asked me. So I'll do it. But you have to work hard. Chinese do work very hard. Now, they're under authoritarian conditions. They are under very difficult conditions. I am not at all saying that we need to follow the Chinese path. But you asked me the question of how they did it. They ruthlessly and they also destroyed their environment, which they have now recently cleaned up. But I used to have many Chinese students. They used to say, sir, in our village, all the water is polluted. Everything is gone to hell. So that's why I'm saying don't destroy them. So they were very, very successful. And as I said, they had 9% GDP growth for 19 years, 9% average. We never even touched 9% because we could never get our focus on economic growth. We have so many other social and political issues. We have traditional identities to defend and fight about this, that. We can't get away from it. We are India. Okay? We will remain India. We will have our social identities. We will have our religious identities. But we need to get the focus on economic growth. Otherwise, in 15 years, even you might find that Bangladesh is ahead of it. And then you will say, my God, how could this happen? I'm telling you, it might happen if we don't get our act together. I've been to Bangladesh. Some of the things they do incredibly well. Incredibly well. We all hear of Grameen, but there's an equally powerful and well-established NGO called BRAC, B-R-A-C. It was actually formed before Grameen. It just doesn't have worldwide publicity, but they're just as good, just as strong, just as powerful. You go, I went to the headquarters of what is called BRAC University. It's not a university. It's where they teach their volunteers what to do. BRAC University, my God, you walk in and you say, my God, where am I? Is this Dhaka? No, it's not Dhaka. It's so well run. It's so good. It's so clear. And we had a program, by we, I mean the World Bank, in which we were financing them to put solar systems in villages, in homes. And the design called for them to do a sample survey to check how's it going. And so I went there and I asked them, how do you draw the random sample? So they laughed at me. They said, we check 100%. We don't do a random sample. You know, they work hard and they've done so many things right. So we need to get, that's why I'm saying it's not just economic policies, it's the meta-economic. Now, China chose a path which was not acceptable in India, which is control, authoritarian, and you can have a good life provided you don't open your mouth, right? That's China. Can't open your mouth. Google is banned, YouTube is banned, everything is banned, okay? None of the things that you want or like are allowed in China, but it has paid off in economic terms. We can't afford that. We can't have it. We have a diverse country. We have different kinds of people. We have to have our diversity, but we don't need to give up our diversity and our democracy. We just need to do a better job, as I said. China, as I said, now facing structural issues. We have young people coming. There are young people missing. We just need to get these young people to be productive. You can't expect them to be all going to IIT or NIT or IIM. They are barely going to make it to 18 before they want some income, because that's the family needs it. They need it, the family needs it, the parents can't afford it. And you know, you hear these stories and you say, oh my God, you know, we have some success stories. I know one young woman, and now she's not so young. She was from a very poor family. Her father took a loan to buy textbooks. She had full scholarship, but how do you buy a textbook? Family has no money. She has no money to even get a textbook. Her father's taking a loan to get a textbook. So and now she's a software engineer in Sweden. So you see these young people doing so well, and I talk to IT people and I see them doing so well. And I think, why the hell are we behind? We are behind because we are not doing the things we should be doing. So the comparison with China is that our political leadership focuses on too many other things other than economic, as I've mentioned. Okay, I hope that's enough. Let's have the next question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. That was quite a detailed reply to my question. So the next question is, so one student wants to know, he as college freshman, how can he prepare himself to get the maximum benefit from the fast growing Indian economy?
Well, get yourself a good job or make money. You know, we are no longer a poor country. I tell all young people, make good money. That's your contribution. You will only get well paid if you do a good job. Aim for good money and donate some of it. Donate some of it. Okay. Use some of it to help other people. Okay. Make good money. No problem. You know, we shouldn't remain poor. We shouldn't think we are a poor country. If you get a highly paying job, go for it. Go for it. Get yourself, you are productive. The economy is paying you when you're productive. Aim for money. It's right. There's no need to feel any embarrassment or shame or anything. You are doing enough for your country if you do a good job and make good money. You have some privilege, you have some advantages, you come from educated families. I came from, and I tell these low income youth, how will you compete against me? My grandfather was highly educated. Not my grandfather, my grandmother, who was born in 1880, was literate when only 0.5% of women in India were literate. So how will you compete against me? My mother, who would be 100 years old today, was fluent in English and taught me algebra. So where are these poor income people going to compete? So make your money and give some to those who are less fortunate, but just as hardworking. So that's college freshmen, focus on your studies. And by the way, have fun. This is a great time to have fun. It gets harder when you get older, trust me. Trust me. It's a great time to make good friends, it's a great time to have some fun, and it's a great time to aim for high paying jobs. But don't forget there are others in the country who don't have your privilege, who don't have your background, who don't have your inheritance. They work just as hard, they're just as smart, you just don't have the chance. Think about them, do something for them. So that's my message.
That's really nice of you, sir. Thank you so much. I think that's gonna really motivate our students to learn, work, and enjoy their lives together. So I'll take up the last question, sir. So one question has come from Shaurya. Has our ability to factor in massive disruption to the economy improved now? And how different is the crystal ball gazing now compared to the pre-COVID times?
Could you ask it again? I missed it.
Yeah, sure, sir. So has our ability to factor in massive disruptions to the economy improved now? And there is another part of the question. How different is crystal ball gazing now compared to the pre-COVID times?
I can't answer the question about the crystal ball, but the COVID has shown that we are not really well prepared in terms of ability to deal with massive disruption. Health-wise, our health system is highly inadequate outside the big cities. We are not able to even communicate. We are not able to vaccinate, and we are not able to provide the medical services that are useful. Now, of course, compared to 1947, there is no comparison, right? The British left us hungry and poor and unhealthy, okay? They left us like that, right? We have gone far ahead of those times, but these health systems stink in most states. They're lousy. The doctors, you talk to the doctors, they say, Subodh, what can I do? I don't have medicines. I don't have the staff. I'm motivated, but I don't have medicines. I don't have the staff. I have too many patients. So it is a great disability right now. And we certainly don't have the ability to do a good job. Now, compared to India, China is out of the COVID. China is out of COVID already. It's 4 months back. The economy is on the growth path. Now we read reports that second wave is slowing down even in February and March, India. China is saying we will hit 18% in the first 3 months of 2021. Now, their numbers are vague, they lie, all that, but still they're claiming 18%. 18%. So we need to be aware of it, that we need to upgrade our systems. I didn't mention health in my key things because health is a basic. I mentioned it in terms of life expectancy. We haven't done so badly in terms of life expectancy. We can still do some more, but we need to work on this. Okay, next.
So students are inquisitive to know what exactly is the division, like if we come to union versus state government. So who has more responsibility towards economic growth? If we look at a focus, from the focus perspective.
Well, certainly the union government is very powerful. There's no question about it. And rightly so, because, they control the income taxes, which are then distributed to the states through the Finance Commission. And they set fiscal policy, which is just taxes and expenditure, right? It's very important. But the big change happened in 1991. Before 1991, all was controlled by the union government, even though it didn't have all the money, but through the Planning Commission, all the investment decisions, etc., were taken by that. So 1991 changed that. Now firms are able to invest where they want to. When Tatas were given a hostile reaction in West Bengal, they shifted their nano plant to Gujarat, where Mr. Modi was the chief minister, and he said, come here. So the action has now shifted away from the union government to the private sector. It's not that it has shifted to the states, it has shifted to the private sector. The private sector decides where to invest. In the old days, the private investment was very small compared to government investment. If you look at the steel plants, they were built by the union government. If you look at the infrastructure, that was all the money was coming from the union government, and where the private sector could invest was also determined to a large extent by the Planning Commission. When all of that changed, after that, it became the decision-making power went to the private sector. Where should I invest? What should I produce? You couldn't produce without approval of the Planning Commission. All that is over. So the constitution is the same, but the way in which the economic policies were implemented has completely shifted. So now when successive prime ministers have tried to do something about the power sector discounts, successive prime ministers since 2000, I can tell you, the Electricity Act 2003 was heralded as a landmark Electricity Act. All will be well now. We have passed the legislation, but all is not well. All is not well because that is an act of the union government. The discoms are controlled by the chief ministers. The act was only an enabling. You can do this and you can do that. Now, successive prime ministers in the last 15 years have said, okay, we will give you some money. All the loans of the union of the discoms can be shifted to the states. We'll give you some money. But does it work? Has the electricity situation improved? Yes, a bit. But are we world class? No. Our so-called losses, which are actually theft, pilferage, and some loss of electricity when you send it from one place to another is 22%. China is 9%. Worldwide, it is 7 to 10%. Why are we at 22%? Why? Because the discoms are controlled by chief ministers who don't care. So what I'm trying to tell you is that and when the chief minister decide that they want to do it, they can do it. The union government has no say whatsoever. You can spend your own money. You have your taxation. Now, what the state governments have done is, unfortunately, that they spend all their money on welfare and subsidy schemes. They have no money left for investment. And they're losing money on the discoms every year. If they weren't losing money on discoms, that money could be invested, right? So we are really the Constitution is not biased towards the union government. It gives powers to the union government. They control the Reserve Bank of India. So fiscal policy, exchange rate policy, monetary policy, they're all with the union government, and rightly so. I'm not arguing against it. I'm saying that agriculture, we have a union agriculture minister, but the union agriculture minister, you don't even now know the minister's name because the minister is powerless. What's he going to do in Punjab, which is run by the chief minister of Punjab? You think the agriculture minister has any say on the farmers who are protesting? They didn't even meet him. Poor chap, I didn't even know his name because they say, who the hell is this union agriculture minister? Is he controlling those farmers in Punjab? No, he has no say. There's no say. So the agriculture is a state subject. Now, in the 1960s, the union government was able to bring in foreign technology and help Punjab and other states to progress. Those days are gone. We are no longer that poor country. The states have the responsibility to look after agriculture. They have the responsibility to look after elementary schools. There's no way that the union government can run the village schools. You think they're going to hire those teachers? No, the chief minister hires those teachers. Whole hospitals are not run by the union government. We have had since the 1950s and 60s, since the prime minister was so dominant and there was one party rule, the chief ministers did what the prime minister wanted. This lasted even till Indira Gandhi's time. So the image that has come up is that the chief ministers do what the prime minister wants. But look at the fight going on in West Bengal. Do you think Mamata is doing what the prime minister wants? I don't think so. They're fighting every day, right? So, and Mr. Modi, he was chief minister, he was fighting the union government every day. The chief ministers had, not to get too much into political stuff, but Mr. Patnaik in Odisha, he doesn't even come to Delhi. Stays in Odisha, barely speaks Odia, and has done wonders for his state. Makes no noise, stays at home, looks after the people, does a great job, doesn't care that anybody knows about it outside his state, never shows up in Delhi, never shows up in the news, just does his work. And there's nothing you can do about it. You cannot win, Mr. Modi cannot win in Odisha. He just loses. Why? Because the chief ministers are able to do. So honestly, I mean, I'm not a political person here. I have my views, but I'm not bringing them up here. I'm saying that the Constitution lays out the powers. Now, the concurrent list is an issue, but electricity is in the concurrent list. The problem is not generation. We know how to do generation. NTPC is a world-class company. They can generate electricity as a world-class company. Solar power in India today is produced at a lower rate than almost any other country in the world. You can do it. But when you come to distribute that power to your home, that's coming from the discount. When it goes to the village, it's coming from the discount. And those villagers, they are not getting the electricity. They are not getting 220 volts. They may be getting 180 or 170. The lights flicker like this, or they're brown. So really, who's responsible for water? The groundwater depletion that is taking place in India, water is controlled by the chief minister. The union government has a scheme, but the scheme depends upon paper. Then you go to implement the scheme. There is no union government staff in the villages. There's nobody in the districts. They can't do it. So my point to you is that there's a huge amount of power with the chief ministers, and most of them are doing a terrible job. Some of them are doing a very good job. I mentioned Patnaik, only Odisha, look him up. All of them you should hold responsible. That's my clear message to you. Okay, next.
So thank you so much. That was quite a detailed answer, and that really touched a lot of aspects. So I would take up a last question from Gauri. So she wants to ask, as humans, we have a fear of the unknown. How would you suggest to overcome that fear in order to pursue unexplored business options and make a living out of it?
You don't have to go into the unknown. I mean, there are some people, everybody is different. Some people want to go and explore the unknown. Some people prefer to stick to a well-established path. And there's nothing wrong with either one of them, right? And there's no pressure to explore the unknown or to go here or there or to do something crazy, right? It's very good idea to stick to a well-trodden path and do well on that path. It's an equally good idea to be crazy. I mean, I can tell you from my experience, I quit my job one day. I was teaching in the university and I decided to quit. Not one day, I decided to quit. I couldn't even tell my wife because she was expecting a child and it was a tough pregnancy. So I didn't tell her. 3 months after our baby was born, I said, I quit. She says, and what next? I said, I don't know. Something will happen. But what is it? She said, anyway, that's your problem. You take care of it. So I didn't have a job after that. How to manage? Well, I'm crazy. It's just people give me work, I do it and I manage. But I'm not saying that's the way it should be. You should have a plan for yourself. Your plan should be to do things that you are not afraid to do. If you are ready to take risks, good. If you are not ready to take risks, good. It's your choice. Be in your own comfort zone. For me, continuing in that same job was not in my comfort zone. My dreaded fear was that I'd be teaching the same course for the next 15 years. They said, but you are good at it. I said, my God, you want me to do this thing for the next 15 years because I'm good at it? I have to get out of here. Right? I have to do something different because I like to be, and even now I have found myself some new work, which I have not done ever before in my life, including I have become an editor, not an editor of a newspaper, editor as somebody who corrects other people's grammar and usage. I never studied that, but what the hell, I'm ready to become an editor. I have some assignments already. So you can do what you like with your life. It's your life. Today in India, we are no longer in that situation where we didn't have a job. You are young people. India is giving you choices. Make your choice. In my time, we had no choices. We just had very, very narrow path and you stuck to it. And you never did anything crazy because there was no scope for doing something crazy. But today, think it out for yourself. If you want to stick to one job and do it for 30 years, great. If that's what rocks your boat, do it. But if you think you need to have a change or you need to try something adventurous, make sure that your partner agrees with it. Don't do it alone. Or at least you have a partner who is supportive. Even if you don't tell the partner, at least make sure that your partner is supportive. Don't do it alone. Okay? I mean, I knew my wife will say, you're mad, but that's why I married you. It's okay. So it was okay, but never do anything without somebody somewhere who will support you emotionally and mentally and personally if you are going to be crazy. Okay, don't do it alone. That's my suggestion. But that's a very personal thought. It's not something that comes out of economics. Something comes out of my life. That if you want to be crazy, let's put it this way. All of you know something about probability and distributions. In the normal curve, we have plus minus 1 sigma, which is quite a bit, then plus minus 2 sigma and plus minus 3 sigma. It's okay to be outside plus minus 1 sigma, but don't be outside plus minus 2 sigma, because then you are truly crazy. Now, you don't have to be stuck to the middle. Just be, I'm just outside plus minus 1 sigma. Okay? Just a little bit out of the norm, but not so far that people would say you are nuts. People say, no, fine, you can do my work, that's good. Okay. But so I can give you work because I know you will do it. Whether you take my job or you don't take my job, that's different, but at least you will do your work. So if you are going to do something crazy or outrageous, then be sure that you are good at what you do. Be sure of yourself. If you are not ready to take the risk, it's great. Get a good job, stick to it, make lots of money, do well, look after your country. Okay, I'm done with that question. We are almost 2 hours now. I'm happy to be here. Any more, I can take a couple of more and then we can close. At 2 hours, we can close.
I think we are good to go, sir, because the questions are done. And I think we have touched a lot of aspects beyond economics as well. So,
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. So I would request now Urvashi ma'am to take this forward and conclude with a vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Aditi. And I don't have words, sir, to thank you. And it's really great to have all the insights from your valuable experience and research. And certainly, sir, I agree that considering the harsh realities of our country, it's very important to progress at the grassroots levels and look at the per capita GDP. And definitely we must focus on being an as you suggested, on being a regional economic power first, rather than talking about being a global superpower. And a nation surely is as strong as its economy, so it means a lot. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our principal, sir, Dr. Shiv Kumar Sedev, who has been a constant source of inspiration for us for organizing such events. And our convener, Ms. Eti Dandona, who has been a constant source of motivation, support, guidance, everything, whatnot. She has always helped us and blessed us with all her insights and experience. And I would also like to thank my colleagues Aditi and Parul for all the sincere efforts towards the department constantly. And I would also appreciate Mr. Afroz for being a very a great team with us. He has always been a very supportive part from the non-teaching staff. And definitely my Thanksgiving would not be complete without thanking the students team. I must congratulate and appreciate Dhairya, Aditya, Muskan, Satvik for doing all the efforts, and especially reaching out to you, sir, and connecting you to all of us, and for so much that has enlightened us so much today. And thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
I would.
My book should be out in early June. I write fast. I'm crazy. When I sit down to write, I write fast. So I should be out with the book by, it will be on Amazon and Pothi, it Kindle on Amazon and Pothi for print. It should be out by mid-June, and it won't be very long. It'll be about 100 pages, and I hope many of you will find the interest to buy it and read it and to make me some money. Like you, I also want to make some money. I told you to make some money. I'm saying I also want to make some money. So buy my book if you feel like it, and hopefully, and keep in touch. You have my email. I'm always willing to reply to young people's emails and queries and so on. So let's be in touch. Okay. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
And we are looking forward to your publication soon.
Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, ma'am. The event wouldn't have been overseen without your consistent support and efforts. We appreciate and thank you all for being here. We are sharing a feedback form in the chat box. You are all requested to fill it. For more sessions like these, stay tuned and follow us on social media pages. Thank you once again for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Stay connected and stay safe.
Muskan? Yeah, Muskan,
Yes,
can
ma'am.
you just, Aditya, can you just brief about the events today to the students?
Yeah.
Aditya is there or Dhairya, anybody? They can brief the students about the events which is going to
Yeah,
take.
sure, ma'am, sure, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, we have three events lined up from 11 a.m. Like we are beginning from the first event in now around 5 minutes. So the first event is a mock stock competition named as Moneyball. The
Okay.
second event will be a treasure hunt under the name of the Forager's Quest, and the third event will be a IPL auction named as Bid Bazaar. So I guess the registrations for now are closed, but the participants can obviously take part if they have already registered in the games.
Okay. All the best to the students and have a lovely day.
Perfect. You can, thank you, ma'am. Aditya, you can stop the live share now.
Sure, ma'am. Okay.
Yeah, and then we could end the meeting once all of the participants have the feedback form. We could end the meeting now.